Hey guys, what is up? It's HBO Manga here and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Now today's video is obviously a little bit different from the normal content that I post. Today I will be giving you guys an anime figure haul. So recently I've been getting a little bit more into anime figures. Pray for me. So I wanted to show you guys all of the figures that I have received over the past couple months. So again, do not think that these are all like within October because that would be insane. So today I have 7 figures to share with you guys. A majority of them are scale figures, but we're first going to start off with the non-scale figures. So the first figure that I got, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I have no idea where his box is. Like, I think it's in my storage room somewhere just deep within and I couldn't find it, so I apologize. I'll include more pictures. So the first figure that I have for you guys today is the Shikamaru Nendoroid from Naruto. I love Shikamaru. I think honestly he is Naruto's true friend. Sasuke, I'm sorry, but you're cramping my style sometimes. I love Shikamaru. I think he is a great character and I knew that I wanted to get the Nendoroid of him. I just love how he looks and I especially love what Good Smile did with the base of this figure. I love how they like shaded it and made it like kind of black to mimic his shadow possession jutsu that obviously he does in the manga and the show. And I love how they added kind of the shadow looking type things to his base as well. I think it really gives this Nendoroid a lot of character and makes him very, very unique. I love the little earrings that he has and just the expression and his little tuft of hair that he has on the back. I will say one thing that I don't really love about this figure, he has a pretty gnarly seam in the middle of his hair, which kind of makes sense. I mean, his hair is pretty like slicked and they have to do some sort of seam. But I don't really love that, truthfully, but that's not like a very big deal to me. But I think this Nendoroid looks great, and I love the variety of faceplates and the variety of items and things that he came with. I'll make sure to include pictures for you guys, but I love this figure. I think he looks great, and I am very excited to own him. Okay, so the next figure that I have for you guys today is actually an action figure, which truthfully, I don't really love action figures. I don't like the responsibility of like posing them and making sure they look good. It's kind of my same thoughts with Nendoroids a little bit. But I saw this figure and it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, you know what, even though I don't love that you're an action figure, I'm still gonna buy you. So I picked up the Star Platinum Super Action figure from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 3. So I have recently been loving JoJo's and have been getting into JoJo's. In Part 3, I'm currently in Part 3 in particular, and Star Platinum is easily my favorite stand. I will say the shading of this figure is really, really well done. I love the different shades of blue and kind of the gold, like, line work, I guess, going up and throughout his body. I think his face looks really good. He does come with a lot of interchangeable parts, such as a different face and different hands, but I thought he looks really, really good. I will say I have a couple complaints. The first complaint is putting on his head was so difficult. So he actually came styled with his other head before I put this one on, and putting this head on was so hard, and I don't even think it's on correctly even to this day. But I still really do love this figure. I think he looks great, and he looks so good in front of my Part 3. Okay, so now we are finally getting into my scale figures that I got, which I'm so excited because gosh dang it, I love me some scale figures. So the first scale figure that I got, you're gonna see a theme of brand, okay? So the first scale figure that I got is the Kotobukiya Art FX Stray Edward Elric 1A scale figure, again by Kotobukiya. I thought he looked so good. I love Fullmetal Alchemist. It is one of my favorite anime and manga series of all time. So getting this figure just kind of made sense. I especially love this figure because I think Kotobukiya just in general just absolutely nails like the flow of fabric. I think his red cape looks so cool and dynamic, and I love how the ends of the red cape are kind of like harsh, almost as if it was like cut off or torn off. I think it looks really, really good, and I love how his chain on his pants is kind of like, there's a little bit of movement to it, it's kind of up in the air. I think the shading on his hair is really well done, and that little spike of hair at the top also looks really good. I think overall, they just did a really good job with this figure. I will say when I first received him, I thought he was kind of small, But I guess it kind of makes sense because in the series, he's a smaller character, so I guess it makes sense. I do have a couple gripes with this figure. The first thing is the base isn't as exciting as I would like it to be. But I will say there is another release of this figure where there's like more of a bottom with like Alphonse kind of in it. I obviously didn't get that, so I'm sure I would like this figure a lot more if I had that, so it's kind of on me. This is the first scale figure that I got. I love Edward Elric from Fullmetal Alchemist, and Fullmetal Alchemist just in general is such a good series, so getting this figure just kind of made sense. Okay, so the next scale figure that I have is actually one that I got from Comic-Con a couple weeks ago, and that figure is the Kotobukiya Artifacts J Tanjiro figure from Demon Slayer. I saw this figure and thought that he looked freaking good, so I decided to pick him up, and here is the figure. I think they nailed this figure. I think they especially nailed his face. I think his face looks very like realistic and very comparable to what he looks like in the show especially. I think he looks great. I love how dynamic his pose is. I love the sword. I think the sword is so detailed, especially like the handle or the hilt of the sword, I believe that's what it's called. The shading is really well done on a majority of this figure. I will say his infamous like checkered jacket, I guess, or whatever this is technically called. I will say some of the shading looks just kind of placed. Like they were like, yeah, we should probably do some shading, so let's just put some shading here and some shading there and call it a day. So on that regard, that's not my favorite thing ever, and I also don't really love his base. I think the base is pretty plain. I'm kind of a stickler about bases, I'm gonna be completely honest. But overall, I still think this figure looks really well done. The quality is great. I love the shading in his hair. I think they nailed his hair shading. And just overall, a really nice figure. Again, I don't really love Demon Slayer like a lot. Like it's not like Berserk level for me, but I just thought that this figure looked so nice, and I thought that he would look great on the shelf, which he does. So I'm very glad that I picked him up. So that is the Kotobukiya Tanjiro figure from Demon Slayer. Okay, so the next figure that I got is one that I absolutely adore. These last three are kind of like my favorite figures, I guess. This was a character that I knew from the get-go of collecting figures that I really wanted to get a nice figure for, and that is the Megahouse GEM Naruto Uzumaki Sage Mode figure. So this is what the box looks like. Pretty self-explanatory, pretty straightforward. And here the figure is. So this is the Naruto Sage Mode, again, figure done by Megahouse, and I think this figure looks fantastic. Naruto has a lot of really nice scale figures, and this was one that I actually preferred over some of the other ones. I think this figure looks really, really good. I love the shading and the detailing, and I love, again, the flow of the fabric. Flow of fabric, if you couldn't tell already, is like very important to me. I just think that the flow of the fabric of the outfit really makes or breaks a figure. I will say this figure took forever to put together. Like, truthfully, probably took me like 10 to 15 minutes to get this thing assembled, just because like the way that the scroll is set in and the figure in relation to the scroll, it was like a whole thing, and it was kind of difficult. But overall, even regardless, I think this figure looks really, really good. I will say a couple gripes with this figure is, one, his hand, for me at least, doesn't like completely grip the scroll correctly. Like you would think that his fingers would like go on the side of like the top of the scroll, but it like doesn't. It's kind of just weirdly floating on his palm, which I guess isn't the biggest deal, but I kind of wish that it was a little bit more form-fitting to the scroll itself. And also, I have a little bit of an issue with his head. So he actually comes with two different head variations. The first one is just kind of him, normal Naruto, blue eyes, just kind of doing his thing. But then the other head is obviously Sage Mode with his like sage eyes, whatever. I wish that his Sage Mode head was a little bit more serious, because I feel like Naruto goes into Sage Mode when he's about to kick some booty, and he just looks a little too happy for me personally. I don't know why. I feel like they could have done the Sage Mode head just a little bit better. But even with that being said, I think this is still a really nice figure. I love, again, the flow of the fabric, and I think it's just a really quality figure. This is my first figure by Megahouse, and I think they absolutely killed it, and I will definitely be considering buying from them again. So that is the Naruto GEM Sage Mode figure by Megahouse. Okay, so we are getting down to my last two figures for this first haul, and these last two figures are definitely two of my favorites. Honestly, I don't really know if I have a favorite between the two because I genuinely love both of them so freaking much. So the first figure that I'm going to show you guys is again by Kotobukiya. We love Kotobukiya. So this is the Kotobukiya Art FXJ Roy Mustang 1/8 figure. I adore this figure. This is actually like the first figure that I actually decided to really pick up, which honestly kind of started this whole collecting thing. So this is the figure himself. I think he looks unbelievably good. Like, who gave this man's the right to look this dang good? Again, the flow of the fabric, his base is amazing. Like, Kotobukiya, make more bases like this because it looks so good. I love kind of the rock base. It matches Edward's a little bit, and then also the flames around the base as well. And then the back of the base, there's like a stone pillar that goes upwards, and then a flag on the back of it, and the flag kind of looks a little tattered, a little ripped. And I think just the figure himself looks so good. I think this pose is really well done. The shading is beautifully done. I love how he's like adjusting his gloves. I think that is the perfect pose for Roy. And I think they also did such a good job with his face. I'm very particular with figures' faces, I'm gonna be completely honest, and I think they killed this face. The figure actually, you can also take off his jacket, which I definitely prefer to keep the jacket on because I think he looks a little naked without it, and it, you know, adds a little bit more dynamic to the character. Definitely one of my favorites, just a really overall beautifully done figure. The quality is immaculate, and just Kotobukiya. You really outdid yourselves with this one. Okay, so the last figure that I have is, again, one of my favorites. This is actually my most recent scale figure purchase. I got him, I want to say, maybe 2 weeks ago, and have loved having him in my collection. He looks so dang good on the shelf. And that is the Kotobukiya, obviously. Kotobukiya Aaron Yeager Art FXJ figure. And guys, this figure, I was like kind of on the fence about getting this figure because I like to get figures for series that I have manga for. I don't know why, it's just kind of a thing because I don't want to feel like a poser. And you guys know how I feel about the Attack on Titan manga. I don't think it looks good. Honestly though, I might get the German releases. So this is the Aaron Yeager Kotobukiya figure. I love this figure. I think the attention to detail in this figure and for the price that you're paying for this figure is insane. They killed it. I love the detail in the ODM gear and the base especially. We all know how I feel about bases. I'm very particular, and they killed his base. I love the tree trunk, and I love the added details of like the slashes in the base, and also adding like the blades in the base as well. I think that's just a really good touch. I think the shading of his boots and the ODM gear and his cape are really, really well done. And I think his face also looks really, really good. So I think overall they killed this figure. I will say I have two gripes about this figure. The first gripe is that his peg and his ODM gear doesn't completely go into the tree stand all that well. Like there's a little bit of a gap there. I mean, that's just me being very nitpicky. And also, I kind of wish they did a little bit more shading on like his yellow shirt. I wish they did a little bit more shading on, and also his brown, I guess, jacket. I mean, the cape looks really good and his shoes look really good, but I just wish there was a little bit more shading on the rest of his clothing. But even with that being said, I think this figure looks absolutely stunning. It's a super dynamic pose and adds a lot of character to the shelf, and it just looks so freaking good. He also came in a line with Mikasa and Levi, with very similar kind of on the tree pose, doing all that sort of stuff from an actual scene in the manga and anime. I might get those figures, truthfully. The Levi one is very expensive and the Mikasa one isn't super cheap. So I don't know if I'll get those figures. Right now I'm just kind of really liking and enjoying the Aaron figure. But overall, I think this figure looks so good. I think Kotobukiya, again, knocked it out of the park. Just a really good figure for the amount that you're paying for it. So if you've been thinking about getting this figure and haven't pulled the trigger yet, I highly encourage that you do. So guys, that was my first ever anime figure haul. I genuinely love all the figures that I got over the past couple months. I think they look really, really well done. Kotobukiya is definitely one of my favorite figure brands, as you can probably tell. I'm very, very thankful to have all of these figures. They look so good on the shelf. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.